Recap. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Dao, Chapter 877. Chapter. The winds above the desolate land howled like restless spirits, and beneath that trembling sky, a silent tension hung in the air. Ronghuan Xuan's heart surged with furious waves of anger. His eyes burned with disbelief and humiliation. A mere mortal, someone he considered beneath even the dust of the earth, had actually dared to laugh at him. Ling Han merely smiled faintly, calm as a tranquil lake beneath moonlight. His voice carried neither anger nor excitement, only a quiet certainty that cut sharper than any blade. "You are far too weak," he said lightly. "Even my disciple looks down upon you. Tell me, where did you find the courage to act with such arrogance?" Those simple words struck Ronghuan Xuan harder than a thunderbolt. Damn it! With a violent flash of movement, Ronghuan Xuan lunged forward like a beast driven mad with rage. His target was not Ling Han, but Ding Ping. In his twisted fury, he had already imagined the cruel pleasure awaiting him. He would drain this mortal disciple of every drop of blood, savoring the terror in the young man's eyes. And when Ling Han watched his own disciple die before him, Ronghuan Xuan imagined the agony that would twist Ling Han's face. That would be his revenge. But just as he moved, boom, the heavens suddenly roared. Dark thunderclouds rolled across the sky like a gathering army of divine wrath. The world itself had sensed it. Ronghuan Xuan had just broken through to the legendary shattering void tier. And with that breakthrough came the trial of heaven itself. The heavenly calamity had descended. Lightning churned within the clouds, divine thunder ready to fall upon the one who dared to ascend beyond mortal limits. Ling Han lifted his gaze toward the storming heavens and murmured thoughtfully. "I've heard that no outsider may interfere with a heavenly calamity," he said quietly. "Anyone who steps in will be dragged into it as well." His lips curved into a relaxed smile. "But if I can split open this very heaven and earth, why should I fear a little heavenly calamity?" A faint glimmer of excitement appeared in his eyes. "Perhaps this will be a perfect chance to temper my body of lightning." Before Ronghuan Xuan could even react, Ling Han casually extended a hand. In the blink of an eye, Ronghuan Xuan felt his body freeze. A terrifying force seized him like iron chains from the heavens. He had already stepped into the shattering void tier, yet before Ling Han's strength, he was as powerless as a child. Instantly, he was caught. What? Shock exploded across Ronghuan Xuan's face. Before today, he had only been at the heaven tier. How could he have ever imagined the terrifying depths of Ling Han's power? He had assumed that Ling Han had merely stepped into the shattering void tier a year or two before him. At most, Ling Han should only be at the second or third layer of that realm. But now, the difference between them was like the distance between earth and sky. The gap was unimaginable. Gritting his teeth, Ronghuan Xuan suddenly forced out a cold laugh. "Ling Han," he sneered, "I am about to undergo the heavenly calamity. Are you planning to accompany me?" Inside, he was already calculating. Crossing the heavenly calamity was never easy. Even under perfect conditions, success was no more than 50%. But Ling Han's power was terrifyingly strong, and the heavenly calamity was a cruel law of the heavens. The stronger the cultivator, the stronger the thunder tribulation that would descend upon them. If Ling Han were dragged into the calamity, then the lightning would become far more terrifying. Perhaps even Ling Han would perish. "You're overthinking things," Ling Han replied calmly. His grip tightened slightly. With his strength, even 100 Ronghuan Xuans combined would not be able to escape his grasp. Then, Kwang, a bolt of divine lightning crashed down from the heavens. Its target was Ronghuan Xuan. But because Ling Han stood so close, another bolt of lightning immediately formed. This one targeted Ling Han himself. 2 bolts of divine lightning streaked downward like celestial dragons tearing through the sky. And because the 2 men were bound together, the lightning swallowed them both. "No!" Ronghuan Xuan screamed in terror. Even at full strength, his chances of surviving his own heavenly calamity were only 50%. But now, he was trapped in Ling Han's grip and forced to endure the tribulation meant for 2 people. Had Ling Han gone insane? Was he truly willing to risk his own life just to kill him? Kwang, kwang, kwang! The heavens answered with merciless fury. Lightning rained down endlessly. Blinding flashes split the sky again and again as divine thunder pounded their bodies without mercy. But Ronghuan Xuan's physique could not endure such devastation. In the very first moments, his body began to crumble. Under the relentless lightning strikes, his flesh and bones disintegrated like dust in a storm. In an instant, he was reduced to ashes. Yet before his final breath faded, Ronghuan Xuan's eyes widened with bitter hatred and disbelief. Because the lightning that struck Ling Han did nothing. Each bolt slammed into Ling Han's body and rebounded away. Not a single trace of damage remained. The heavenly lightning that should have destroyed him instead scattered like sparks against an indestructible mountain. Ronghuan Xuan's final thoughts burned with despair. Damn it! If there was another life, he must never encounter a monster like Ling Han again. To exist in the same era as this man was a tragedy. When the last traces of ash scattered across the wind, Ling Han stood alone beneath the fading thunderclouds. His expression remained calm. There was no joy, no sorrow. For someone with his current power, defeating the Thousand Corpse sect meant little. Still, he had removed a dangerous instability from the world. Ling Han raised his fist. With a single strike, the two remaining fragments of the Three Lives corpse casket shattered completely. As for the pond of the underworld, that place was not something that could simply be destroyed. It had been formed naturally by the condensed yin-qi of this realm over countless years. Destroying it was impossible. Instead, Ling Han chose another method. He sealed the entire region beneath Million Treasures City using powerful formation techniques. From this moment onward, it would be nearly impossible for the Thousand Corpse sect to reactivate the pond. With the matter settled, Ling Han brought Ding Ping back to the imperial capital. There, he made two major announcements. First, he publicly declared to the entire world that Ding Ping was his disciple. Second, he summoned all officials and subjects of the empire for a final grand assembly, because soon, Ling Han would split open the sky, and once he did so, he would be forced to leave this world as a hostage between realms. From that moment onward, the Reign Emperor would act as regent, governing the empire in his place. But truthfully, very little would change. Ling Han had never involved himself deeply in governing affairs. He had always been more of a symbolic ruler than an administrative one. As long as he remained alive, his existence alone was enough to stabilize the empire. When Ling Han realized this, he couldn't help feeling somewhat speechless. Was this the mark of a successful emperor or a failed one? Still, preparations had to be made. After the heavens were split open, some clans would inevitably be tempted by the forces of the immortal realm. They might betray the great Ling Empire, seeking their own interests. Therefore, a sweeping purge was ordered. Any clan whose loyalty was uncertain would immediately have their authority stripped away. Ling Han himself did not personally oversee these matters. Instead, he made a quiet visit to the Kang clan. The heaven-grade alchemist Kang Zishi caught his attention. There was a possibility that this man was descended from Ling Han's former apprentice, Kang Shuyuan. But after careful inquiry, Ling Han discovered the truth. The Kang clan could only be considered a half-blood lineage of Kang Shuyuan. The clan patriarch had actually been Kang Shuyuan's adopted son. For reasons unknown, Kang Shuyuan had not ascended to the immortal realm with the others. Instead, he had left behind this bloodline. Until Ling Han located his 4 apprentices again, he had no intention of revealing his true identity. After exchanging a few words, he departed quietly. Yet his visit left the Kang clan deeply uneasy. What exactly had His Majesty meant by this sudden appearance? Ling Han's authority was now overwhelming. In the past, heaven-grade alchemists stood above worldly power. They bowed to no one. But now, all lands fell beneath imperial rule. Even heaven-grade alchemists had no choice but to lower their heads. The alchemist society itself had been absorbed into the empire's authority. Imperial power grew even more consolidated. Next, Ling Han summoned the most talented youths of the younger generation. Among them were Wen Yijian, Xuanyuan Ziguang, and other renowned geniuses. Ling Han spoke to them of the future. Once the sky was split open, they should venture into the immortal realm. There, they must temper themselves through trials and hardship, and if they achieved greatness, they should return to serve the great Ling Empire. Of course, the immortal realm was far more dangerous. Background meant nothing there. Experts were as numerous as clouds in the sky. Even Ling Han himself could not compare with many of them. Leaving the empire meant facing constant danger, even death. Yet only through such trials could true elites be forged. Hearing these words, Wen Yijian and the others felt a complicated bitterness. In the past, Ling Han had been merely their equal, perhaps even weaker than them. But now, he had become the strongest figure beneath the heavens, and they were still lingering at the deity transformation tier. At last, they understood. There were some individuals in this world who were peerless monsters, people they could never hope to match. Ling Han offered encouragement to every one of them. These youths might become the pillars of the empire's future. He held great expectations for them, but at the same time, Ling Han relied on no one but himself. For the sake of the great Ling Empire, he bore a greater responsibility. True strength came only from strengthening oneself. Naturally, Ling Han also ensured that the best resources remained within his closest circle. Yue Kai, Yu received an endless supply of cultivation treasures. Ling Han even passed down several powerful mystical powers to him. However, transmitting mystical powers was not easy. To do so required stripping the imprint of the secret technique directly from one's mind. This process itself caused damage to the cultivator. Thus, Ling Han did not spread these powers widely. Only 3 people received them: Feng Po Yun, the Rain Emperor, and Murong, his 3 sworn brothers. During these days, Ling Han worked tirelessly to prepare everything. Once the heavens were split open, he would have no chance to make arrangements again. As his 5th disciple, Ding Ping received special guidance. After Ling Han departed, Ding Ping would continue cultivating under the Rain Emperor and the others. Eventually, he too would leave the empire and temper himself through the wider world. Time passed swiftly. Half a month slipped by like a drifting cloud. Finally, Ling Han decided the moment had arrived. He would split open the sky. He did not summon the world to witness it, not because he lacked confidence, but because his confidence was absolute. There was no need for anyone to watch him achieve greatness. The heavens themselves would bear witness. Translator, Henyi Translations. Editor, Henyi Translations. In the vast lower realm, news of a single event had already spread like thunder rolling across distant mountains. The day Ling Han would split open the sky had been announced openly to the entire world. He had not attempted to hide it. On the contrary, he had declared it clearly, letting every corner of the realm know the exact day this impossible feat would be attempted. Yet such a monumental undertaking could never remain secret, even if one wished it so. The heavens themselves seemed to tremble at the mere thought of it. And Ling Han had no intention of concealing the matter in the first place. Though he had informed the world of the date, he had not sent formal invitations for anyone to come witness the event. But for an event that could determine the fate of an entire realm, invitations were unnecessary. Those who had keen ears and sharp instincts had long since rushed toward the imperial capital. They gathered in the surrounding lands, waiting anxiously for the moment when the sky itself might be torn apart. Among those who had arrived were not only humans, but also members of the sea race. Even they had come to witness this extraordinary moment in history. Still, despite the anticipation, hope was mixed with deep uncertainty. After all, the world had witnessed failure once before. Even someone as overwhelmingly powerful as Ma Duobao had fallen. He had once been known as the world's most terrifying killing formation incarnate, a being whose power shook heaven and earth. And yet, when faced with the elites of the immortal realm, even he had ultimately been slain. If someone as mighty as Ma Duobao could fall, then what about Ling Han? In truth, many people could not help but harbor doubts. No matter how monstrous Ling Han's talent was, could he truly surpass Ma Duobao in such a short period of time? It had only been a little more than a year since that catastrophic failure. To grow stronger than Ma Duobao within such a brief span seemed almost impossible. If Ling Han had chosen to attempt splitting open the sky 100 years later, perhaps people would have more confidence in his chances. But now time had already run out. Everyone knew the reason why Ling Han could not delay. The full invasion of the 5 great sects from the immortal realm was drawing closer with every passing day. When that day arrived, the suppressive powers of the realm would still exist. But the immortal elites would nevertheless find opportunities to unleash attacks at the immortal level. And once those terrifying beings interfered, the chance of successfully splitting open the sky would become even smaller. There was only one conclusion. The attempt had to be made immediately. All across the world, countless people silently prayed. Ling Han had to succeed. If he failed, the future awaiting them would be worse than death. Because when the immortal realm finally invaded completely, the people of the lower realm would not merely be conquered. They would be harvested. Their lives would become ingredients. Their bodies would be refined into realm pills, precious cultivation treasures that would nourish the power of immortal realm lights. Just the thought of it made people tremble with rage and despair. Many clenched their fists so tightly that their nails dug into their flesh. Their hearts burned with humiliation and fury so intense they felt they might vomit blood. If such a day truly arrived, they would rather end their own lives than allow those immortal realm elites to use them as resources. This grim reality was also the reason the 5 great sects had spent thousands of years brainwashing the inhabitants of the lower realm. If the ingredients rebelled or destroyed themselves, then all that cultivation nourishment would be wasted. And to the immortal realm, wasted ingredients were unacceptable. Not far from the imperial capital, Helion Tianyun stood beside Ling Han. His expression was grave as he spoke. "Brat, are you truly certain about this?" His voice carried a solemn weight. At this point in time, Helion Tianyun had already regained his peak strength. In fact, he had even surpassed his former limits. His normal battle prowess had reached 21 stars, far exceeding what Ma Duo Bao had once possessed. Ling Han turned toward him with a calm smile. "Haven't you already taken enough beatings from me?" Helion Tianyun's face immediately darkened. He remembered those sparring sessions all too clearly. Ling Han had not even needed to borrow the power of the nation to defeat him. The beating had been so overwhelming that Helion Tianyun had nearly been knocked senseless. Helion Tianyun rolled his eyes helplessly. "You monster of a brat! Your physique is terrifying enough, but even your pure strength is outrageous." He stared at Ling Han with complicated emotions. "Now I'm starting to wonder, who exactly is the real descendant of the true dragon?" According to ancient legends, the true dragon possessed the greatest physical strength in the immortal realm. That legendary benchmark had long been used to measure power. Yet here stood Ling Han, a man without a drop of true dragon blood, whose strength could actually surpass that of Helion Tianyun, a dragon descendant with the purest true dragon lineage. It was simply unbelievable. Ling Han only smiled faintly. The true dragon might be powerful, but it was not necessarily the absolute strongest being in the immortal realm. If it were, then the 9 Dragons Tyrant body art would be nothing more than a meaningless joke. And besides, one did not need to look far for proof. Just look at Ding Ping. Even without cultivating the 9 Dragons Tyrant body art, Ding Ping's natural strength already exceeded that of other martial artists of the same level by more than tenfold. Compared to him, could the true dragon bloodline really claim to be so extraordinary? Therefore, within the immortal realm, there must exist beings even more astonishing than the true dragon itself. Helion Tianyun clearly came to the same conclusion. And your disciple? He's also a freak. His expression turned even more depressed. As if one monstrous genius appearing wasn't already outrageous enough, now there was a second one. Still, Helion Tianyun could not help but offer advice. "You still have so much room to improve. Why not wait a little longer?" Ling Han had not yet cultivated the power of regulation. If he did so first, his strength could grow even further. But Ling Han shook his head. Once the sky was split and they entered the immortal realm, the power of regulation from this small world would no longer be applicable. Cultivating it now would only waste time. Instead, he planned to cultivate it after entering the immortal realm. Ling Han spoke calmly. "After I split open the sky, Ding Ping will be entrusted to you for training. I will also pass the 9 Dragons Tyrant body art to you. If you fail to train that kid properly," he smiled faintly, "I'll come back and cut you into pieces." The moment Helion Tianyun heard the words 9 Dragons Tyrant body art, his eyes lit up with excitement. "I never imagined such a technique could exist in this world." He laughed loudly. "To think there is a power capable of surpassing the true dragon itself." His voice grew filled with ambition. "Just wait until I finish training that kid. When the time comes, I'll conquer the immortal realm itself. Those 5 sects, the Ao clan, and all those bastards will kneel before me and admit defeat." Ling Han waved his hand casually. "Ha ha! Stop boasting. People might think I'm delaying on purpose. Then his gaze turned upward. Without another word, Ling Han rose into the sky. His voice echoed through the entire world via the totem. Today, I split open the sky. The moment those words spread across the realm, the entire world erupted. Cheers, cries, and shouts surged through the totem network like waves crashing against a boundless sea. Ling Han had never intended for every great power to attend the ceremony. But since he had announced the date long ago, countless factions had already gathered outside the imperial capital. Now, seeing him ascend into the sky, their hearts trembled with tension. If Ling Han failed, then everything would be over. They would accept their fate. Before the immortal realm fully invaded, they would live out their remaining days enjoying what little time they had left. When the moment finally came, some would surrender to destiny, while others would choose death, because Ling Han represented their only hope. And after witnessing Ma Duobao's failure, especially when success had been so close, everyone's hearts had become fragile. This time, he had to succeed. Master. Ding Ping clenched his fists tightly. He now understood what splitting open the sky truly meant. If Ling Han failed, it would be the end of all living beings in this world. Ding Ping felt bitter hatred toward his own weakness. His strength was too small. He could only stand here and watch helplessly, unable to assist his master even slightly. Helian Tianyun looked at him and spoke seriously. Kid, train hard. Your future achievements will not be inferior to your master's. Though Ding Ping's cultivation wasn't particularly high, Helian Tianyun could sense something terrifying within him. That strange physique of his could unleash power 100 times greater than normal. Even without cultivating spiritual qi, such strength was already astonishing. Perhaps someone like him did not even need to cultivate origin power, because origin power could not amplify his extraordinary bone structure 100-fold. Ding Ping nodded heavily. He wanted to share his master's burden. He had heard the rumors. After entering the immortal realm, Ling Han would likely be forced to become a hostage. For a sovereign who ruled a nation, what humiliation that would be. As Ling Han's disciple, Ding Ping felt that humiliation as if it were his own. I must become stronger. I must stand beside Master. I cannot remain hidden behind him while he bears everything alone. Nearby, several figures raised their fists. The Rain Emperor, Feng Poyun, Morong Qing, Yu Kaiyu, and many others. You must succeed. Though their voices were not loud, their hearts roared with determination. Across the air realm, countless people held their breath. The tension was so thick, it felt like a bowstring stretched to its breaking point. The lower realm had nowhere left to retreat. Yet in the sky above, Ling Han remained calm. To him, the situation was simple. Unless the 5 sects of the immortal realm possessed elites as powerful as the one from Rock Palace who had interfered before, he had nothing to fear. But that elite had been an extraordinary existence. The 5 sects themselves were only at the Sun-Moon tier. Where would they find someone stronger? Ling Han's current power had already surpassed Ma Duobao's by an enormous margin, and his body had become as tough as divine metal itself. Any attacks launched from the immortal realm would first be weakened by the suppressive power of the realm. By the time those attacks reached him, Ling Han could destroy them easily. They would not even be able to harm a single strand of his hair. To him, splitting open the sky was simply a path he had to walk. With a swift motion, shua! He raised the mountain and river axe. Across the world, voices surged together like a tidal wave. Long live! Long live! Long live! The power of countless wills gathered through the totem, forming a vast ocean of faith. Ling Han gripped the mountain and river axe firmly. A terrifying force began circulating through his body. Weng! The divine axe burst into brilliant light, radiating endless might. At this moment, Ling Han had already reached an unimaginable level of power. His brute strength and origin power erupted simultaneously. His raw strength alone reached 13 stars. Combined with his mastery of martial arts techniques and secret arts, his battle prowess soared to an astonishing 23 stars, and he had not even used the power of the nation. This level of power had already surpassed Ma Duobao's ultimate battle strength. Even more terrifying, Ling Han still had room to grow. For him, splitting open the sky would require no effort at all.